Buenas and half a day, everyone. Good morning. This virtual informational hearing by the Committee on Air Transportation, Parks, Tourism, Higher Education, and the Advancement of Women, Youth, and Senior Citizens is hereby called to order. Today is Tuesday, October 12th, 2021, and the time now is 10:01 a.m. For the record and in accordance with open government law, notices for this hearing were sent on October 5th, 2021, and again on October 8th, 2021. In addition, this hearing was noticed in the Guam Daily Post on October 10th, 2021, and on the Guam Legislature's website. Joining me here this morning, I'd like to thank my colleagues for being here, Senator Mary Camacho Torres and Senator Tello Taidigui. Good morning and thank you for being here. Before we proceed with the discussion of items on our virtual informational agenda, I'd like to provide some general rules of conduct for all who are in attendance. The conduct of this hearing shall be as follows. All must abide by the rules of conduct and quality assurance standards. Please keep video on at all times and ensure you are in a room with little interruptions and adequate lighting so that we can see the participant's face. When speaking, please make sure that you are unmuted and speaking into your microphone. The chair will invite individuals to begin speaking, and individuals testifying shall first be recognized by the chair and state your name and your position for record purposes. The order of questioning will be with the senators, and we'll go for one round and add an additional round if needed. Each member will be allowed to pose questions, and questions and testimony shall be confined to the substance or nature of this agenda. Personal inference as to the character or motive of any senator or any individual testifying is not permitted, and any violations of this general rule of conduct will result in removal from the meeting room. So I'd like to thank our partners at the Guam Visitors Bureau for being here today. This is an informational hearing on tourism recovery efforts. I'd also like to recognize my colleague, Senator Joanne Brown. Thank you for joining us. From the Visitors Bureau, we have Chairman of the Board, Milton Morinaga. We have Treasurer Sam Shinahara, GVB Board Member Ben Ferguson, and Board Member Flori Ann Dela Cruz, as well as the team from the Visitors Bureau. Here today, we have Governor Carl Gutierrez, President and CEO of GVB, Dr. Jerry Perez, Vice President of GVB, and Ms. Nadine Leon Guerrero, Director of Global Marketing. Siduas Masi, and welcome everyone. This virtual informational hearing with the Guam Visitors Bureau is the third in a series of hearings convened by the committee and will continue to serve as an avenue for the legislature to receive updates on the Bureau's progress and efforts for the reopening and recovery of our tourism sector. As the chair on tourism, I hope that we can continue to work together to increase Guam's efforts to aid our main economic sector toward recovery and to find new ways to develop resilience. As we continue to fight the COVID-19 pandemic and return to a sense of normalcy, it is imperative that we get our tourism industry up and running again, and it is imperative that we do it in the safest way possible. The Guam Visitors Bureau has continued to play an instrumental role in this endeavor to recover, and they are here before us today to discuss their current initiatives. I look forward to today's discussion. At this time, I'd like to invite our partners at the Guam Visitors Bureau to provide their presentation, and then we will move on to questions from the panel of senators. So I'd like to first recognize the chairman of the board, Mr. Milton Morinaga.
Good morning, Senator Shelton, Torres, Taidigui, and Senator Brown. Good morning and halfa day. I'm glad to be here today, but the reports and the presentation will be done by the GVB management, president, and the vice president, and Nadine will make the presentation to brief the senators what's going on with the reopening and the current status with the business industry. Please look forward to their presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. So we'll turn it over to President and CEO, Governor Carl Gutierrez.
Thank you very much, Chairman Shelton, Senator, for this opportunity. Senator Torres, Senator Taidigui, Senator Brown, and all the members of the board, the chairman, Senator, or not Senator Sam, but I don't think he likes that title, Mr. Sam Shinohara, Ben. Thank you very much. And Flory, nice to see you here. I know you've always been very interested in helping out here at GVB, more than some people in the past have. But thank you very much, Madam Chairman, for the opportunity again for this informational hearing. I know that this is such a dynamic situation that you take a step forward and two back, and we though have never faltered in what we as an agency, with the advice and consent of the board of directors of GVB, and how to proceed in trying to recover. As everyone knows, this is the vehicle that requires the gas, the fuel to carry us forward when this situation of the pandemic really goes back down to a manageable situation. Right now, it is not manageable. We have been hit several times by forces outside of our control, outside of the governor's control, the CDC and other areas that mandate certain things that either keep us in the continental United States edicts or and won't carve us out. And so this is how we're dealing right now with the situation. The staff of GVB, led by Jerry Perez, Vice President, has been putting together strategies. And we will show you what it was like in the year ago that they came up with a estimated figure of what it would be like at the end of fiscal year 2021, and how we hit that mark or how we didn't hit that mark. But there is a lot of help that we need here to be given to us to be able to drive this vehicle forward to recover. The governor has been more than helpful in setting aside $20 million, hopefully be coming to us soon if we sit down again, and we will soon. And also the fact that we were given $13.8 million from the topping and other things not given to us, but has picked up that tab through public works efforts in a grant. So we're moving forward, and Jerry and Nadine will explain to you more details. And I would also explain to you after, and I can break in once in a while when Nadine and I went to Palau. And I'm glad that Sam Shinohara is on here, because that discussion kind of zeroed in on the United Airlines as the critical partner for this program that they're looking for Guam and Palau to try to put together. So with that, thank you again, and I will break in once in a while and have Jerry Perez go ahead and start the presentation.
Okay, thanks, President Carl. Senator Amanda and members of the committee and my board members, thank you for joining us this morning. Senator, this will be the third in a series of updates that you have organized, and we're happy to share the progress from when we first gave you our briefing a while back. This brief that I will be sharing with you has been put together to try to summarize as much as possible a lot of the activities that we've been working through in the last year. And I would encourage our board members to chime in at the appropriate time. If I've missed some of the details, or if I didn't cover enough of the details about particular elements of the brief. So with that, I would like to get started by just saying that to give an overview, generally, the tourism business environment is not really very good at this time. But since the pandemic, going back to a little over a year when Carl and I first came on board, and at that time, Chairman Sandiata and the board basically asked us to redirect our resources to focus on COVID containment and to deploy our marketing assets and PR messaging capabilities to assist with containing the COVID. The idea at the time that, Sonny Atta was chairman, and the board at that time said that basically the sooner we can help stop the spread, the sooner we can get back to business. So much has happened since the COVID outbreak, and I've shared, like I say, Senator, some of the progress from time to time with you. And this will be the latest summary of updates since we last met. The tourism business environment has brought us now to a recovery footing that the Recovery Task Force has initiated in terms of pursuing 3 strategic initiatives. The first, of course, from the get-go was to, this is since last March or so, was to scale up vaccination. Second is to really prepare the destination for the time when we start getting our visitors. But more importantly, to develop a fairly comprehensive communication strategy aimed first locally at testing and informing the local community about vaccinations, getting them to get vaccinated, and reassuring the local community that we are doing everything we can to make the opening of tourism as safe as possible. At the same time, we are not staying dark, but we are communicating with our source markets to let them know exactly what we're doing in Guam to make Guam a destination safe experience. We would continue to say that despite the recent surge in cases, we still believe Guam is a safe destination because of the high vaccination rate. I hear that we're nearing 90% now. Secondly, we have a very robust detection and contact tracing strategy. And more importantly, we have more widespread COVID-safe protocols in the community that are in place. So despite the spikes that we're seeing in recent days, we still believe that we're a safe destination. This is just a comparative of where we were or where we are in terms of the COVID situation. And the important thing to recognize here is that even though it's affecting our young population, if you can see, the pandemic admissions are really 0. This is an update as of October 8th of our source markets vaccination rate. I would call your attention to the second line below Japan, which is Korea. Korea is closing up very, very fast to Japan in terms of the vaccination rate. And keep this in mind because the narrative that we're starting to evolve in the Bureau is that Korea is going to be like the low-hanging fruit, and we're going to be getting some visitors probably from Korea of any scale. This is just the fatality rates to show you that Guam's 1.3% compares favorably with Taiwan, the United States, and the Philippines, but are still not as good as Japan and Korea. And so we need to continue focusing on the vaccination program to try to bring our fatality rates down so that we can encourage these countries to develop reciprocal protocols on visitation. So the overall tourism business environment is not very good at this time. There are regional and global expectations for pre-COVID levels to be hit not before 2023, and in some cases 2024. And this comes from a variety of global tourism organizations, from PATA, which is the Pacific Asia Travel Association, to IATA, and the UNWTO. So you can see that the expectations for recovery pre-COVID is still at least a couple years or more away. This travel recovery is basically been impacted by disparate factors on virus controls by different countries, vaccination take-up rates, and travel protocols and consumer sentiments in our source markets. More importantly, there is still lingering concerns on the slow pandemic containment in some areas, and weak consumer confidence continues to persist based on unemployment environments, the job security and concern and fear of COVID-19. So all these factors tend to depress demand, and it's an issue that we're trying to contend with. Visitor projections and the budget. This is always a very hazardous exercise given the current COVID environment. If you will recall, when we make these projections, we try to listen to many differing opinions. We try to look at different data points and try to understand different perspectives. And we've attempted to balance our spending plan and marketing investments among competing priorities. We also try to make sure that the different GVB committees, as you know, GVB is a membership organization, and we try to get our membership engaged in different committees. So in helping to fashion our forecast, we give a lot of deference to some of the recommendations that the different committees have come up with. And then we also independently review in-country information and feedback from our marketing reps, as well as travel agent partners. So in fiscal 2021 forecast, we originally, in retrospect, it looks like it might be foolish, right? But at that time, around fall of 20, we were forecasting around 200 arrivals. The industry and the board of GVB then agreed to peg it at 251,000. The legislative forecast was 400,000. Midway through the fiscal year, we did an adjusted forecast of 82,000. And I don't mind sharing with you that at that time when we did this revised forecast, we were really getting hammered by a lot of people who just couldn't figure out why it was so low, despite the fact that we've articulated all the reasons why the whole value chain of tourism has been disrupted. We ended up the fiscal year with 60,000. We didn't even meet our mid-year revised projection. So as of September 30, we had 60,000 basically arrivals, in large part thanks to a lot of military exercises and other arrivals in our non-traditional markets. So what we did in June of this year was did an in-country survey from our source markets and found out that consumers surveyed indicating that they will not travel outside the country for vacation until pandemic ends. In Japan, 73% said they will not travel until pandemic ends. In Taiwan, it was 52%. And Korea, it was 43%. Now keep Korea in mind at this time. Just last month, we did the same in-country survey on and found out that Japan now is still 70%, down from 73%. Taiwan, a little bit improvement, but Korea, fewer people have indicated that they will not travel until the pandemic ends. Again, keep Korea in mind because it's down from 43 to 38%. In June of 2021, this past June, only 19% surveyed plan to travel in the next 1 or 2 years. Last month, we did an in-country survey for the same markets and found out that Japan is still 10%, Taiwan 15%, still not willing to travel. But if you look at Korea again, 27% believe that they will be or planning to travel within the next 6 to 12 months. There is some recent encouraging news that we've shared with the board and with the industry. The first significant one is that, as you probably read in the paper by now, Japan has lifted their COVID state of emergency. All regions for the first time in 6 months, new cases, deaths, and strain on medical facilities have eased. There's been a precipitous drop in Japan in the daily cases from more than 25,000 in August this past year, or just this past August, nationwide to only 553 by October, just a few days ago. So you can see the tremendous improvement in COVID cases. Korea is considering to lift restrictions once 80% of the adult population and 90% of the elderly population is fully vaccinated. And they're expecting this sometime late this month or early November. Having said that, we have also been engaged and have landed a group incentive tour from GS25. This is a convenience market chain, and we're going to be getting 12 groups, each with 50 passengers, starting in November. So things are looking up based on developments in our Korean market. Air service is still an iffy situation, and we're still seeing rolling delays from month to month, but airlift appears to be firming up for the second part of the fiscal year or second quarter, and anticipating a built-up in inventory backloaded through the third and fourth quarters through September 2022. So this is giving us a lot of reason for optimism and modifying somewhat our forecast for arrivals. In line with easing government restrictions and green shoots of pent-up demand and the in-country service we've been taking, as well as the new development of a MICE market booking now that we've landed, we feel very positive that we are making the turnaround. So the hazard guess that we're putting forth is a conservative guess of 85,000 arrivals. Keep in mind that we just concluded the year with 60,000 arrivals. We think conservatively 85,000 next year, and we believe that 130,000 is achievable. This compares differently from a lot of the feedback we're getting from the industry. But again, we're still trying to plan for, or rather, plan for the worst case while we, manage our limited budget. This is just an example. Oh, let me get back. I forgot to mention this. Along with the arrival numbers, you can see the tourist attraction fund projection that is associated with those arrival numbers. These are the arrivals that we forecast. As you can see, it's backloaded toward the third and fourth quarter of the year, and we hope that trends continue to be positive in the next several weeks so that these numbers can hold. In terms of what we had to operate with, Public Law 3654 allocated $14.5 million for the Bureau's budget, which is, far less than what we had originally requested. But to that, we also have $2 million in unspent 2021,000 funding that the folks in the marketing department and destinations have been able to try to conserve because of the financial situation we're in. And in addition to that, we have some estimated balances from previously approved projects by the board, totaling $2.9 million. So in essence, in addition to the $14.5 million that the legislature has appropriated through our savings and stewardship, we're able to generate up to 19.4 for a total budget that the board had considered just last week. So this is just a summary of the 19.4 million budget that the board approved last week. 70% is in marketing and research. We need to recognize that marketing priority is based on emerging opportunities, historical island spending, and emerging airlift situation. We also need to be sure that we have the right data through research that we can develop key performance indicators to assist us in decision-making by the management and board. And more importantly, built into this marketing budget are some incentivizing initiatives that we hope can help basically goose the market where appropriate. 10% of the budget is allocated for destination management and improvements because we recognize the importance of the island's tourism infrastructure and physical plant as being part of delivering a memorable and safe destination experience. With this in mind, we're mindful that there are certain areas where GVB would need to fill in the gaps for some of the responsibilities that otherwise belong to other departments and agencies, but for various reasons are not being met. The third has to do with 20% administration. This is basically making sure that we have the leadership and institutional capacity to manage the island's #1 export industry and to try to maximize the value and use of limited funds through good stewardship. Now, let me give you an update of the Airbnb experiment that was started some months back in order to try to generate some activity in the tourism sector. We believe that this was overall a successful program that generated some tourism activity from Taiwan that basically, you have to keep in mind that for the last year and a half, our entire value chain in the tourism industry in Guam has atrophied because of non-arrivals from our source markets. So we wanted to get something going to get this thing stimulated at least. And so the two issues, however, that limited our expansion of this program is that there's a lot of cost and return protocol restrictions that are making it difficult to continue pursuing this program in a big way. The second thing has to do with the issuance of US visas. The US State Department had very limited hours of operation and so are not able to deliver or to even have appointments. We tried this in the Philippines, in Thailand, Indonesia, Malaysia. The visa offers of operation there has been pushed back to, I mean, we hear appointments not being available until March or April of 2022. So that was an impediment. But something else have come up in terms of the new development in the Biden administration. And this is something that we're watching very carefully because the proposed policy by President Biden is to open up international air travel as long as visitors are fully vaccinated and have negative COVID tests. So,
Yeah.
Carl, you might have a point of view on this.
Well, let me just jump in first. Number one, the collateral benefits we got out of the Airbnb was a heightened awareness of the Taiwanese people about Guam as a destination. There's only maybe 2,100 people came in during that 2-month period. But in comparison to what we spent in marketing in Taiwan in the past, we, I believe, got over $6 million worth of free media in Taiwan. So everyone that that loves to travel in Japan, I'm sure a majority of them have heard about Guam and the personal reports, the anecdotal reports that came back to Taiwan from those that visited here. That's really quite probably something that you know we weren't expecting right off the bat that we would be getting that much earned media. Now I haven't spoken with the governor yet, but knowing that the governor has a strong backbone, and I know that Biden, in my estimation, was lifting this or placing this fully vaccinated to travel to the United States as more of a European lifting than in the Pacific. And I'm sure that if we get the governor to step in a bit and establish the fact to the Biden administration that the Airbnb program to our ally in Taiwan particularly, that they would carve out Guam on that requirement of being fully vaccinated. So hopefully there's still an opportunity for Airbnb to work well for Taiwan.
Okay, because if that doesn't happen, it will make our Airbnb program not feasible. And it's not just the Taiwan area, because if Guam is safe as we say it is, then it's an enticement for other countries to be able to come and take advantage of that. Because most of these other countries are still lagging behind, with the exception of Singapore. Most of these other Asian countries lag behind the vaccination rates. So I know that, Senator, you've heard some of the local businesses with concern on staying in business. And we would urge the legislature and the governor to support their request for funding so that they can survive because of the prolonged downturn in arrivals. And we need these businesses to survive because, like we commonly say among ourselves, the painting and the picture of Guam tourism is not made only of one or two or three color dots, but a whole bunch of color dots make up the destination picture and personality of Guam. And I liken this kind of in a local Chamorro way, that if you have a smiling face with teeth, it's like coming to Guam with a smiling face and missing teeth. You don't want to come to a destination that is duffy, right? So that came from President Carl. And so we have things to do. It's an important part of bringing visitors to the island. And so we really would appreciate whatever legislative support can be provided to these businesses who are reaching out for their survival. This is the Prote Linalata group. And this just gives you an idea of the pre-COVID. You see how vibrant and busy on the left. Unfortunately, on the right, we're still seeing pretty much a deserted zone. So switching now to more of the destination improvement highlights, I think you'd be pleased to know that the Matapang Beach Infiltration Project is finally underway. We are preparing construction documents now for a bid in January or February. And so we're really excited about that because it's coming from an infrastructure grant that is specific for infrastructure from the federal government, as opposed to the the regular federal grants given to the COVID recovery assistance program. We also have a bid out currently on improved lighting and pedestrian safety improvements. We have a lot to do in this area, but we were able to secure about $900,000 from hot buns that Gita had returned to GVB so that we can start with this improvement. We still think we might have another $1 million or $2 million coming that is tied up. And without going into the weeds on why it's tied up, if we get that money, we can just continue sustaining our improvements in the lighting and pedestrian safety area. The Tumo landscaping and maintenance and beach cleaning is a major project that is of concern to us, of course. Historically, it's been done by one or two large, very large companies. So what management has agreed to do is to shift from one large contractor to several smaller contractors to give opportunities for small local businesses to participate in this opportunity. I know that this is going to be more management intensive for GVB, but I think that's the pain that we're willing to accept in the interest of providing more business opportunities for smaller businesses. I couldn't overstate the importance of our VSO program. When we, I know sometimes we get questions of why do we have a visitor safety officers when we have no tourists? But I will tell you that the entire focus of this downtime is these VSOs performing a multitude of services for the community that's even beyond their scope of work. So I don't know, Carl, if you want to chime in here, but.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senators, I hope that I'm going to give a shout out to this organization, G4S. Number one, back in the day, there was the CAT, the Crimes Against Tuman Tourist organization made up of Guam police departments that DSOs are now providing. And I'm going to say to you that I think it behooves the legislature also to maybe recognize this organization, G4S, under Teresa Sakazaki. I've never seen an organization provide this kind of service, this kind of attitude. This company has just amazed me to the fact that there was an instilling in the hearts and the minds of their employees that to do this extra work and not say, hey, this is out of my lane. These people are going above and beyond. I'm sure that I see that even our chairman have witnessed, especially during the flooding periods where they're out there doing jobs that is not provided in their responsibility, but they're there. So I hope that the legislature can, I think I'm calling out, shouting out for the VSO and particularly the organization, the company that owns or has the VSO contract. They are excellent, and I ask the people that are in business here in Guam, take a lesson from G4S in this VSO program because they are exceptional, and I hope the legislature can do something, Senator Amanda, to give a shout out for them. They are, I'm sure you probably agree that they are excellent organization.
Yeah, they are really performing what we believe is trying to deliver a good destination experience, because these guys, they walk around, they notice a couple of campsites by vagrants and they just don't report it. They actually take action themselves and then report it as they clean up the mess. And this is just part of it. Part of it has to do with traffic control. Part of it has to do with monitoring our parks and beaches to make sure that our local residents are safe and enjoy their day. And so, I mean, it's really hard to overstate how much these guys and gals are doing to help the destination experience. So, something else that we've been working on for a while now is that we've just announced the availability of storm messaging toolkits for the industry. And this toolkit was developed in collaboration with the Guam Department of Homeland Security, the Guam Hotel Restaurant Association, to enhance readiness among our industry stakeholders. And so this toolkit has a storm safety graphics available in English, Japanese, and Korean, as well as Chinese. And it has to do with preparedness and messaging for our, shareable on social media channels or display monitors. So all the hotels and all the different suppliers of our tourism industry can actually take advantage of this. We also are at the tail end of our marine tour operator update. I know that we have tour guide certification for land, but now we also have certification that include the marine environment. And to date, we have 55 enrollees, 20 participants have completed the course, and we have a testing schedule to provide full certifications for the others. All this is rolled into the #2 initiative that the Recovery Task Force has been working on, about what are we doing to prepare the destination for when visitors start to arrive in scalable numbers. So where we want to take this now is from where we are today to want to show you a quick video. I think that Christian is going to play, because this is where we want to be in a few months. Christian, can you play it?
This vibe, you can't fight it. This time, you're not gonna get away. And in the night, you hear me calling. I'm always shouting your name. We're gonna ride this highway. Don't have no time to lose. And I'm gonna take you with me. My heart is on the move. Get ready. Get ready. Get ready. Get ready. This time we stick together. There ain't no better plan. Heat up that stormy weather. We'll take it hand in hand. We're gonna ride this highway. Don't have no time to lose. And I'm gonna take you with me. My heart is on the move. Get ready. Now's the time. Get ready. It's a midnight ride. Get ready. You better believe. Get ready. It's just you and me. Now's the time. It's a midnight ride. You better believe. It's just you and me. Get ready. Get ready.
Okay, wanted to play that snippet for two reasons. The first reason is on behalf of the management and the board of the GVB, that is really what we want to aspire to in hopefully not too long from now, to give you a picture of where we were and where we really want to get back to. The second reason I wanted to play that is to show you the variety of option tours and the reason why the collection of small businesses that have come to you for help, deserve your assistance. With that, Madam Chair and members of the committee, thank you for giving us this opportunity to share an update with you, and I'm glad to see Senator Frank Blas joining us.
Thank you very much, Vice President Dr. Perez. Thank you very much, President Governor Carl Gutierrez, and to the board for being here. I'm sure there will be lots of questions from my colleagues. I also want to recognize Senator Frank Blas Jr., who joined us earlier for your presentation. And I'll begin with some questions, just some general questions, then specifics to your presentation today. Before the questions, I do want to commend the board, the team at GVB for all of your work to continue what you're doing and help us prepare for the reopening and the recovery of tourism. I think that video was a really great display of what we have to look forward to, I hope very soon. And you did mention the request from members of the GVB, from GVB and others in the business community who are looking for additional assistance. And I know that is something both the governor and I have been discussing, as well as this committee, to find a funding source for additional help to these businesses who have been suffering throughout the pandemic. So it's certainly something we are working on. And I wanted to ask, in general, you talked about some of the forecasts for tourism, and I wanted to know if we have a specific plan, any kind of plan past this year or the next, something maybe a 5-year plan down the road for destination improvements, destination management improvements, as well as adaptation plans, because as we've seen throughout the pandemic, everything that we're doing is different, from the way our children are going to school to the way that we are conducting business here in the legislature on Zoom. We are adapting every day. And I'm sure that things in the tourism industry are changing as well. And so I want to know, what is GVB doing differently and planning for in the next couple of years?
Well, let me answer that, Senator, Madam Chairman, that in trying to figure out where GVB might be heading in the sort of the long range planning or mid range, the vision we needed to get from our governor of Guam, Luliang Guerrero. We picked her brain, asked her what her vision was. She gave us her vision, and her vision we are trying to articulate in a way that we will bring it back to her as what we thought maybe she was talking about. And that's we're not at liberty right now to tell you what it is. She would be the one to unveil that. But we are looking at if you looked at Pleasure Island, which happened 25 years ago, you know, that sets a certain set of group of people there. But at the outset of Jerry and I coming into GVB, we passed along with the board, asked them that I think that Guam should get back to the cultural centric idea that we did in the 70s when we first opened up tourism. That the assets of Guam were the people and the characteristic of Guam. And then we kind of morphed into this Pleasure Island over there, which did very well for our tourism industry. But we want to get back to the cultural centric idea of promoting for Guam for our people. And there is an idea that's on the table that the governor has told us what she would like to see. It may take a couple of years, maybe less, but certainly in 5 years, it'd be a heck of another destination for Guam. That takes into consideration not only the culture of the Guam area, but for the entire region of Micronesia, being participants in it, and also getting into the 5G generation. So this is what we're working on right now. Hopefully in the next 2 or 3 weeks, we will be able to brief you, Madam Chair and Senators. And the board, of course, would have to agree to that prior to coming to you.
Yes, Madam Chair. I know that the long-term planning should never be forgotten as we continue to fight fire currently, right? So that's not lost on us. And while we are more tactically intensive in terms of trying to generate arrivals, we're also thinking longer term on what we need to do to really drive arrivals beyond just the normal way of doing things.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for that answer. And I'd like to move over to the budget and how we're using the money that's going to be appropriated now and some of the money that you have in the coffers at GVB. left over from previous years. And so I know you spoke about a $2.9 million a reserve that is for previously approved projects. And as we've talked about during these last couple of years, things have changed rapidly. And so I'm wondering, are these projects at this same amount, $2.9 million, are these all still applicable?
Yes.
Okay, maybe you can expand a little bit about those projects specifically.
Okay, so the 2.9 million, for example, a big chunk of that, we have, the board has felt that 1.9 million of that would come in a variety of incentives. Once the timing is correct, we don't want to spend this money now on incentives when you can't get any conversions, right? So we're holding that we're holding our powder, so to speak, for the right timing on that. And also part of that has to do with our ability to provide free PCR testing. For example, I mentioned earlier that Korea is low-hanging fruit, and we've got like a mice market group coming. This would include, as part of the attraction to Guam, our ability to provide PCR testing before they return home. And so we also have other kinds of incentive programs that relate to, tour operators in our source markets, incentivizing them. So all of these are baked into this $2.9 million, but the timing isn't right yet to start spending them. There's about $1 million on top of that we have for PCR testing. I'm sorry, so that's 2.9 covering that. But the extra 2 million that we have not spent is going to be used to augment our marketing effort in Japan.
Okay. And is part of this $2.9 million, any of that going towards the Air V&V program, or is that from a different amount of money?
No, that's part of the money that had been used for Airbnb, right? But that's on pause right now for reasons that I've already described.
The balances of the Airbnb program was transferred over to the incentives program.
That's right.
Okay, and so the Airbnb program right now is on pause, and I know that we do have limited resources, and that's been transferred to the incentive program. But now that we're learning that our source markets are vaccination rates are rising, you showed us that slide with Japan and Korea on the rise. Should we continue to spend the same amount of money in that Airbnb program, or will we look to use that money in a different way?
No, we're looking to use that money in a different way, and we'll probably, that's part of the incentives menu that I mentioned to you, that money. So it doesn't make sense to spend money on Airbnb at a time when we could redeploy those financial assets to our opportunities.
Okay. All right, thank you for that. And I know there was a part of the slide where you talked about the vendors for the Tumon upkeep and the different areas where we do the landscaping under GVB. And I know that people in the community, they love the way that Tumon looks, how great we take care of that area. And I'm wondering if GVB has the resources right now to manage the multiple vendors that we're talking about, going shifting from one or two large vendors into multiple smaller vendors. Will we be able to expect the same level of quality in the upkeep of Tumon, and will we be able to manage all of those vendors at this time?
Well, let me say that that is going to come to a positive situation. Believe me that when we break down the areas, it's not like you do bush cutting or that. We give designated areas. We want these small businesses that cannot afford any bonding to be able to bid to do this Tumon area, because if we break it down into smaller pieces, 6, 8, 10, 13 places, We want these contractors to take ownership of that area, and I believe that monitoring it is not a hard task for GVB to accomplish. I would go out there personally, and Jerry has got a certain area for him to check. That's my responsibility to make it work. But certainly we need to bring our small businesses back. The mom and pop bush cutting companies, the people that know how to do landscaping, they can participate. They have never been able to participate because they cannot get a $2 million bond or $1 million bond. These people are going to be happy. Families will be happy because it can be a family business. And we want to not deter that situation simply because we say we cannot monitor it. We will monitor it. It's our responsibility to even make it better than what they've seen in the past.
Yeah, we
Mr.
actually are retooling our internal manpower to be able to make sure that someone responsible, besides me and Carl, walking the street. Yeah, no, I mean, I don't mean to take light of it, but your concern about quality controls is understood.
Okay, thank you very much for that commitment, and I certainly support, wanting to help our small businesses throughout the community, but I want to ensure that we're able to manage all those smaller contracts, especially with the limited resources within the Bureau, and ensure that we're ready for when the visitors come, but most of all, that our village of Tumon is still just as beautiful for our local people to enjoy as well.
If I may say, Senator, Chairman, that the area is still the same, whether you have one contractor or two contractors doing it, you still go and inspect the area. It's never changed. It's the same size, the same situation. You just go and look and see whether it's clean. It may be 5 or 6 different companies doing it, but it's the same area. So there's no really extra hard management for it.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. President. And I wanted to talk a little bit about the forecast, tourism forecast that GVB publishes and shares with the community. I know this is a number that a lot of us rely on. We take it very seriously in the legislature to be able to appropriate the right amount of funding and to support the work of the Bureau. And I know you spoke about what industry experts recommend to you, and you showed us some of that in the slides. Can you tell us what is the formula that you use to come up with this forecast and how you take into consideration the advice of the industries or the experts of the tourism industry when coming up with this number for the forecast?
At the end of the day, Senator, it's really, there is no real precise way to come at a number, especially given the COVID situation. How we arrive at this is we look at scheduled air seats for the destination. There's an organization called DIOMI, and basically they are online, and we access that as a resource, and they have 90 days out and more seats to destinations. Not only seats to destinations, but also cabin class and all this. And then we try to match that with historicals, and then also try to match that with new developments on airlift. And from the number of seats available, we try to interpolate what really the carrying capacity is for airlift. And then what we do, and again, as I mentioned earlier, we consult with people in the industry, and we consult with people directly involved in the industry, whether it's the airlines or the hotels and the different marketing committees. And there is no magic correct answer other than an interpolation of what we believe might be the best number. So when you combine that with what we know, what we try to do is try to bracket a conservative and an achievable number. And I know this isn't giving you comfort in specifying the Tourism Attraction Fund dollars, but the best we can do is to bracket you a conservative and achievable number, and within those parameters, make a judgment call, and that's what we've been able to do, rightly or wrongly.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Yes, I mean, it's certainly a very important number for us, and we appreciate the work that you do to come up with those numbers and the research that goes into it. You're right, it doesn't necessarily bring us comfort, but I think that we are living in very rapidly changing times, and every day we see things change, and whether or not we can welcome visitors back to Guam as quickly as we want to. And that's been a challenge for all of us, I think. So I do appreciate that work. Before I move on to my colleagues, I want to ask.
And I appreciate that, Senator, and that's the reason why we believe that the realistic way to do this would be to give you a bracket of what we believe is a conservative estimate and an achievable number, and then we can live with those, and then it's up to us as a group to budget and spend against a conservative number or somewhere in between.
All right, thank you. Before I move on to my colleagues, I wanted to ask a couple of more questions about the tourist attractions that we have on island and the things to do. You had a slide about things to do on Guam. And I was wondering about some of the events that we've seen in the past on island, our GVB signature events like the marathon or sports games that we hosted, concerts that really were an exciting part of what we were doing on island for our tourists and for our local community. I want to know what we're committed to in the future once we're welcoming our tourists back. What is GVB committed to seeing these events through, and what is the impact of on our tourism industry if we are to forego some of these events, or if we are to maybe add new events to these endeavors?
Senator, that's a great question. As we all know, a series of events is one way to generate interest and to attract visitors to the island. We have not yet at this time sat down and really outlined all those different events that has been done in the past. I know that this past year, we have hardly had any sporting events or any major cultural events on, online, on hand as opposed to online. But we are just trying to grapple with managing as best we can what limited resources we have to basically survive. We're operating now roughly in about 35% of our typical budget. And so with that footing, it's difficult for us to really pick and choose at this time to see which events we can leverage best, cost effectively. But that's a conversation that management and the board will need to go through in good order at some point and get back to you, as we progress with that exercise.
Let me add also that first thing we do as an organization here is to follow whatever laws are first that have been established. On the events, for example, some of these are actually in the law, and we'll follow that the way it has been in the past. So those are the things that are now, as far as additional stuffs, I think that as the president said, that we'll have to dictate coming from the board.
We also need to be mindful of the current protocols that limit the interactions that we can do.
Of course. Okay, thank you very much. I'd like to ask if you can provide to the committee a list of those events that have happened in the past and anything that maybe has been in the planning stages so that we can be aware of them. And I think for all of us to keep these in mind with protocol restrictions for gatherings and with mandates we have already in the law, how we can plan and move forward to prepare for reopening and to entice visitors to come to Guam with these events. So if you could provide that to us, that'd be great. Then I'd like to move on to members of the committee for any questions right now. Senator Torres, do you have any questions?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to commend GVB for that very thorough briefing. And I'm quite pleased that your focus on the Guam brand and the need for the community to be a part of that Guam brand and contribute to it is essential. I just wanted to ask briefly on the non-traditional markets. Jerry, you had mentioned that of the 60,343 arrivals that we've experienced this year, most of them are attributable to military and arrivals and also local travel. I just want to ask, what is the focus in the interim for encouraging that non-traditional travel, say with the pent-up demand for resident travel or increased military travel? Is that an area that you're focused on? And you know, how does that tie in, for example, with destinations like that are frequented by residents such as the Philippines or Japan? You know, what is the effort on that part?
Yeah, well, let me start that and then turn it over to Nadine. But these non-traditional markets basically, in many respects, have helped us. And one of the non-traditional market, of course, is the military. It's as high as 50 or 60% of our mix of arrivals this last couple of months. If you can believe that. I mean, I remember years ago when that segment was barely 1 or 2% of our mix, and now it's forming that. And then we're also trying to encourage other non-traditional markets that include from our region that can come, as well as VFR markets from the States or elsewhere. And Nadine, you want to get to
I
that?
was just gonna actually mention the VFR. So visiting friends and relatives, that's a market that we've actually actively pursued, not only recently, but in the past as well. We normally reach them through social media, which is something that we've actually managed to continue to do during the pandemic.
Is there any laxing of travel to some of the more popular and frequented local destinations like the Philippines or Japan? I mean, what is the status there with that availability of flights or the lifting of restrictions upon arrival to those destinations? Is that something that you're actually discussing?
We've actually, some time back, we've looked at having Guam be included on the list of green zones or green places that can come into the Philippines with less than onerous restrictions. But we have not made progress on that because the Philippines is still asserting very, very strict return protocols on designated hotels. And so as far as the flights, I know a board members here, maybe he can add to that at some point, but there are still limited restrictions on the number of flights. It's all driven by demand by United and Philippine Airlines.
And if I could add, the countries continue to have strict protocols for entry. For example, for Korea, you actually have to apply to enter. Now, Japan is only allowing family members and citizens to return. So it's quite an interesting time we're in, trying to rebuild our markets.
Let me add that as far as Korea is concerned, that we have sort of alerted the board that in our budget that we have set aside that the first trip out of from here to a destination is to Korea. And a lot of those discussions will be made to be able to see, face to face some of the lifting of these restrictions. So that is a key here, because we, as Jerry kept saying, keep your eye on Korea, and we are keeping our eye on Korea. So that has been in the planning, and hopefully in the next 3 weeks or 3.5 weeks, we would be able to get a permission to fly into Korea and meet with the powers that be there. So that we can get that some kind of a protocol going, not necessarily a bubble, but visitors.
Yeah, so we've actually been discussing this vaccination travel lane that has been discussed before, but with renewed interest recently with the media coverage from Singapore and Korea. But we've been looking at this thing And it's not really exactly a bubble kind of arrangement like you have between Korea and Saipan, but it's a broader issue than that. But the foundation of that is really reciprocal protocols. And so that's what President Carl is going to be racing with, hopefully the appropriate ministries to see if we can arrive at some kind of a understanding on that. So it's out there. Nothing is a done deal, but it's an opportunity yet again to add to the narrative that Korea is our low-hanging fruit.
Thank you. And I think, Uncle Carl, you touched upon you're dealing with things that are not manageable. And I was just trying to ascertain to what degree things are actually malleable, so but I understand. And I think that it's just that sort of thing that we're dealing with something so unprecedented, right? That you do everything you can.
Thank you for understanding that.
Right. Seduce Mossy,
Hey,
Madam Chair.
Senator, sorry, excuse me. If I could just add, and this is tangentially related to kind of what we're trying to accomplish here, but over the weekend, Singapore announced these vaccinated traveler lanes, right? And so the U.S. was turned on, will be turned on later this month for travel between Singapore and the U.S. And they turned on another 8 countries. And as a result of that, announcement, there was a bunch of people across Singapore that logged into different websites across the different travel segments, and they crashed the Singapore Airlines travel website, and they crashed the Expedia travel website because, and I think that telegraphs a little bit of a message that there is a lot of pent-up travel demand. And I think in the surveys that Jerry sent out to our different source markets, there's indication that people will travel when the pandemic is over. I don't know how anyone defines when the pandemic's over, but I think a good indication is when country restrictions are lifted. That's a good indication that there's some opportunity to travel. And I think from an airline perspective, and I'm here as a member of GVB's board, not United Airlines, but I think from a capacity perspective, airlines are ready to release their schedules just as soon as these border restrictions are lifted, and we're very hopeful. I think from a forecast perspective, it really is a shot in the dark right now, right? I'm hopeful that the numbers that GVB published are overly conservative. That's what my hope is. I believe that's what the people in the industry are hopeful of, but we really just don't know. And I think what we are worried about is that when our source markets are ready to travel, our competitive destinations are ready to receive them as well. And so, it's going to take a lot of time, energy, and resources to make sure that we rebound properly. It's important for all of the stakeholders. And I don't know that there's any business or member of government here on the island who is not a stakeholder in the tourism industry. I think it's really important that we work together and come up with a solution that makes sense, because this industry is important to everybody here on the island, and we need to rebound successfully. But I'm optimistic for sure.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for the insight. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Senator Torres. Senator Titlegy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning to everyone here. And it's an excellent presentation. Greatly appreciate it. I made sure I downloaded to go back to review it again. And I'm pretty sure I'm probably going to have more questions, but greatly appreciate the hard work that GVB has been doing, especially during this very difficult time, and stepping up to the plate in areas which are not your normal day-to-day job at GVB, but willing to assist in any way that you can to help Guam recover. And the question I have, though, on page 11 of the presentation, with regards to the numbers that you provided here, I will not travel outside the country. Okay. This survey that was taken, and you have a percentage, how many people were asked in this survey?
The people were asked in the survey in terms of number.
Yeah.
I can't tell you exactly how many, but it's statistically significant. We want to make sure that we get statistically significant results, the 95% level.
Okay, so I'd appreciate just to find out how many people were interviewed on this to determine these.
We can provide you the exact number. We can provide you the end number, but
Yeah, I think this was very, very smart of you guys to do something like this, you know, just to get the on ground level in these countries to find out their sentiments. And I know GVB does these kind of surveys quite a bit, you know, or where would you like to travel? I mean, in a short period of time, things like that. So this survey is going to be very helpful just to hear the heartbeat of these countries coming out. So very well done on this. I thank you for that. Where do we stand with regards to our status from the CDC on travel? We were rated very high warning. Where are we today?
We're still at the highest level, Senator.
And that does make an effect, you know, with these countries coming to Guam, you know, we can only hope they don't pay attention to it and realize that Guam's actually vaccinated at a higher rate than most areas, you know, so hopefully they don't pay attention to that. But that leads me to my next question with regards to resources and funding that's being used. How much funding is being set aside to work on, to push out online marketing and promotions through social media? I know that we talk about destination management. I know that you're picking up people in Korea, you know, a new company coming on, but what resources are you using when it comes to online? Because everybody now with COVID has taught us now to be more well educated on surfing the internet. And sometimes when you're surfing, things pop up, you know, advertisements and videos. And you know, I surf quite a bit the internet, but I never see Guam coming up as a destination to travel to. And
you're not the
So if I may answer that question, Senator. So I would estimate off the top of my head that about 80% of the marketing budget is dedicated to online, whether it's
good.
Whether it's the different social media networks we have out there or the different platforms that we're using. There's a number of programs that we have that are going to be online or are online already.
I'd love to see that plan. I'd love to see where the money is being spent on what surfing internet sections would come. That would be something really important to provide the legislature as we all are moving more toward virtual and we are.
Yeah, Senator, I'm happy actually to report during this pandemic, we actually grew our social media followers in all of our source markets.
Yeah, we didn't go dark with our market. As a matter of fact, we've intensified it, and we'd be happy to give you some of the analytics.
Yes, that would be very helpful, and to understand where you're going on this, because it's going to be the new norm, you know, in marketing and advertising, to push more. What do you can you tell me what kind of working arrangement you have with sharing resources and promotions with the airport?
We're very open with sharing with them, Senator. Every time they've made a request of us or we've made a request of them, they've shared and we've shared. So working with the airport, we have our airline incentive program, and we're always in communication with them. They're part of our Air Service Development Committee.
And let me also add quickly that the airport and GVB has a memorandum of understanding as it relates to the marketing in Taiwan. And so we are sharing resources to be able to not only bring tourists here, but bring airlines here, bring goods here, bring cargo, bring hospital programs, all of these things. We have come together with not only the airport authority, but with GIDA as well. So GVB now is looking at marketing Guam more than just tourists because of the inception of this two memorandums of understanding. to bring other economic development opportunities here, including pharmaceuticals and the like that has been already being put forward.
Thank you, Governor and President Gutierrez, for that. That's very good news in hearing that, because one of the issues too is that there seems to sometimes be a disconnect that GVB gets all the money while, airport, needs help. And I'm hoping that this is a monthly or even bi-weekly meeting with, connecting with the airport and GVB. I'm hoping that you do that. Can you tell me about the ARP funding that you mentioned earlier, President Gutierrez, with regards to 13 million from Matapang? Or maybe it's probably simply just tell us how much money in ARP funding you have and how much money is from grants.
Well, it was 13.8 that came through a grant through Public Works, and Public Works overseeing this. But certainly, our part of this project is overseeing, the original layout and design, and the concept and the rendering. And so I'm not too, we're not ready yet to get a final number on that, although we pegged it at 18 million in the earlier stages, but we're still working on the final layout of the entire thing and the final cost, and including your art requirements. And that hopefully will come in the next month or two before we put this thing out to bid around January.
And can you tell me, President, what amount of money have you received so far currently with ARP funding?
I don't have any figures on art funding because we've not been involved in any of those projects, but
so you haven't received any money as to this day from the governor's federal funds?
No, we haven't for construction work related to art funding. The funding for the Matapang so far is about 14.6 million roughly. I don't remember the exact number, but it's in two parts. Part one really has to do with fixing the filtration system and the storm water problem that we've had down there. And then part two has to do with the actual improvement of restoration of the park. That will have some buildings. I don't know what the number is yet because it's still under construction documentation, but we'll have a better fix on that. That can be used then to determine the value of any art contribution to that.
Okay. Okay, thank you. On page 10, when you talked about the, okay, this is, I'm sorry, not page 10, page 16 of your presentation, you talked about the destination at only 10%. You know, Governor Gutierrez, I know you've been an advocate trying to make this island a beautiful place. Get it ready, you know, get our house in order, get it all prepared for our visitors to come. And we actually have the opportunity when there's no guests in the house that we can clean our house and make it a beautiful place to see. I love that scenario that you made earlier on, you know, and that's why I was wondering about the ARP funding, because only 10% is designated to destination management. And I'm just hoping that maybe the reason the number is low is because you're receiving ARP funding. And that's why maybe that number is low, but please correct me if I'm wrong on that.
Well, let me just start, Senator. This is our operating budget, okay? And so in terms of any capital improvements, this is not included. The capital improvements are on top of what we've outlined in this 10%.
And this afternoon, we will be having another virtual public hearing from the Senator Joe San Agustin on some of that capital improvement. It's about $10 million. And some of those areas of improvement for our destination would be is enumerated there.
Yeah, and actually part of that investment goes to all the villages, because the whole goal of that is to make the villages more attractive for visitors, because Tumon Bay is the center of our tourism industry, but Tumon Bay is not Guam. And so an effort to push visitors to the villages is a part of that $10 million that we're going to be testifying in a few hours to Senator San Augustine. And that includes things like consistent village signings, and not only consistent village signings, but having the ability to post QR codes so that in these QR codes, it can describe the whole village, the events that are going on in the village, and all the different attractions that can relate to a particular village. So there's much more on that. And in terms of the destination aspect that you speak of, the 10% is just our operational budget. But
Okay.
to that, we have a lot of capital intensive projects.
So that might have been a great part of the presentation, PowerPoint presentation of all the plans on the capital improvements. Maybe after your meeting today and maybe we can get something in, you know, a plan, kind of similar to the marketing of the online and social media plan put together. If you could let us know what those anticipated projects will be and the
Sure.
cost, it'd be very helpful to let us know, you know, to even advocate, you know, for it.
Sure, yeah.
There's still, as you know, Jerry, 14 senators here, not just one. So the last, I thank you for your indulgence, everyone. My last question is, I've been trying to find them. Of course, I read the reports that come out through, Josh sends out GVB, but I'm trying to find, if you can go to page, your projected numbers, I think it's page 14, yes, page 14. You have these forecast numbers of monthly, if I'm not mistaken, these are monthly arrivals, is that correct? Page 14?
Yeah, that's our best estimate monthly arrivals. And that's
Could I get one which does the same thing, but the actuals, because now we're from 2021, you know, starting from 2021, or actually it would be, because you started October, your anticipation was October. I guess you're starting on the fiscal year.
yes.
If we can get the one for FY 2021 that are actually actuals,
Sure.
where can I find that?
Well, we can provide that.
Okay, because I tried to look on the website. I looked at the presentation that Josh sends out every month. And I couldn't find it anywhere on how many visitors came in for this month or last month or the next month.
Okay, so I could send you the link for that.
Please,
Our
yes.
September numbers were just finalized though.
Oh, excellent. Okay, that would be very helpful. Thank you, Nadine. And you know my email address. So again, thank you for the presentation. I look forward to additional information that'll help us, you know, get more of a grip on where we're going, you know, in the future. And most especially the need of GVB, what your vision is, and trying to make bring Guam back to some kind of, you know, a little bit of a normalcy, or to adjust to the new norm. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Titlegy. Senator Blas.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and to all, good morning. Thank you very much for the presentation. I'm sorry I was a little late, but I was, for what I was able to gather, was very insightful. Governor Terry, it was nice to speak on, although the circumstances were a bit unfortunate. You know, we had a little time to be able to talk about these plans, and I continue to look forward to continuing to work with you and the rest of GVB on these things. As you probably all know, I am continuing to look for different ways to be able to get funding to help our tourism-related businesses, so that in as you had said, Governor, is to, you know, not only clean our house, but get us prepared so that when it is time for the visitors to come, or even to start to look at different places, that we do have something to offer. So I continue to work with you. Without divulging, Senator, thank you for your great idea. I just hope it can ever come to fruition, man. I tell you, we've got it all licked.
Yeah, and about the other one, that little secret, yeah, it's still a little secret. We'll see where that comes from there, okay? But yeah, I'm gonna knock on every door, turn every stone to see where we can find it, because everybody, you're right. I mean, first off, we're talking about an industry that makes up a great majority of our economy, and in order for us to be prepared, and so that when things start to pick up, because it's going to start to pick up, when, of course, that's going to be that's the $1 million question here. But we certainly want to be in a position so that when it is time to be able to market, and these people and the tourists start to come in, that there is a destination that they will enjoy, and that our industry here is ready to welcome them. So we'll continue to work on that. That said, though, I appreciate the conversation. What seems to be right now, and it's from a marketing standpoint, the biggest challenge that you've got in trying to in preparing or getting ready for the interest or for tourists coming back in? What's the biggest challenge that you have right now?
Our biggest, for me, not locally, our biggest challenge is dealing with the United States of America. First, some of the times we want to be included into the continental United States protocol, and sometimes we want to be carved out because of the way our short market look at us. But for example, the CDC, when they rate us, we're the only ones in the CNMI they rate, and we're up in a very bad score. But they don't rate any other state, which is way worse than us. And so I said last time, I just hope that the EU rates the United States and others and the various states very, very low. I think they'll hit 5. There's no 5, but they'll hit 5. So I'm hoping that they rate themselves so that they stop rating us. So and this is one time that we want to be included in the continental United States, so they don't rate us and tell the whole world that we are in category 4. They don't tell that about Texas or Florida. So we want to be included in that group so that we don't get rated separately. So that's our biggest challenge right now and the governor has realized that, and she's not stopping and trying to figure out how we can benefit from, in one way, getting into the continental United States rating where they don't rate, or carving us out of a United States edict. That's our biggest problem right now. And also, the countries that have their own returning protocols, that we can have a better chance of solving by simply speaking and coming up with a plan that we can both agree to share protocols and have that travel begin.
Yeah, and Senator, I would add that locally, to your question on the biggest challenge, is really making sure that our value chain remains. In other words, all these different businesses who have come to you for support, that they are made to survive. And I know that they've been discussing some assistance from the legislature and the administration, but whatever you guys can do to make sure that these businesses survive is a big challenge that helps to deliver on our product. Having said that, I want to circle back again to Senator Titlegy, because I might have misspoke when I mentioned something about meeting with Senator San Agustin to discuss the capital improvements. Actually, that's a public hearing that he's sharing that we'll be testifying on at 4 o'clock today that has to do with the 10 million. So that's what I meant by that. It's not like meeting with him personally, but it's his committee that we're going to be testifying on. And so I would invite you to join that committee as well. So I hope I've kind of clarified that.
Okay. Well, thank you. Governor, going back to what you had stated, yes, I think that in my observation as well, we have it. First off, there's a tendency sometimes to lump us with the United States, and then there's a tendency sometimes to lump us with the United States, and depending on what it is, it could work for us or it could work against us. And I think that as a suggestion, in putting together the narrative to bring us back in is you're right. the tourist industry on Guam is different from the tourist industry in Florida. And in Texas for that matter. That said, though, is trying to create the narrative and trying to create I guess the means to be able to show that we are doing everything that we can, and we'll probably be more successful than most other places in the continental United States. But when Washington D.C., and I'm speaking to the choir here, when Washington D.C. wants to talk about the states and the territories, sometimes we get lumped in with Butte, Montana, and Orlando, Florida, and maybe that's not good for us. I appreciate, and lastly, I appreciate the discussion of the non-traditional markets, and I want to encourage continuing to work on that effort as well. I think that as a result of this pandemic, it has forced us to be able to look into our closet and dust off those old plans and some of those things that we had, for lack of a better term, set aside, but now to bring them back onto the table, as a viable part of the industry. I'm very excited about that part as well, because again, like you said, Governor, the non-traditional marketing is bringing in those industries, bringing in the other sectors that may be interested in setting up shop on Guam, as opposed to anywhere else, because it's either one, it's closer to Asia, or for Asia, this is the closest U.S. point. And so I appreciate that too as well. Other than that, thank you very much. I will continue to work with all of you, and trying to get our tourism related businesses back online and keeping them to survive, so that when you do go out and says, okay, we're ready, it really means we're ready. So thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you. May I just add on the non-traditional markets, although it may be traditional, but we don't here at GVB have all the answers to every single problem, but we have been visited by many people. We have received phone calls about ideas, and the one particular phone call I got was from your former senator, former Judge Klitsky, who has perked up his ears about how much is going on in the military here in Guam, and that he has not yet seen any major push for the non-restricted area of visitors to come to Guam and return back without restrictions. And that's the continental United States of America. And the many families, mothers, brothers, sisters of military personnel that are here in Guam. And so Nadine has been now looking at what kind of incentives, what we can do with the hotels, with the airlines, to give these mothers and fathers and brothers and sisters to come visit their loved ones here in a manner that we give Koreans incentives to come here. We want to bring these people here. So we're focusing a lot of attention to that. And that's a great idea. And I thank Judge Bob Klitsky for waking us up on this idea to again focus and put something back. United States does not restrict anybody coming to Guam, and neither do they have a restrictive protocol when you return. So that's a great source of market right there that we want to also pursue.
Thank you very much, Senator Blas. And there are no more questions from the panel. I'd like to thank the GVB board and the team.
May I, before you dismiss us,
Sure,
I asked again I heightened this thing to the people of Guam about how to act as a business out there. And I did mention the G4S and what VSOs are doing. And, in the process, I just want you to know that if you want to do something about this, it's the personnel that go from the top of Teresa Sakazaki. And then you've got this Paul Suba, who's been there, and Krista Nicholas monitoring and pushing these people through. That kind of leadership is unprecedented as far as I can see here. So I hope you please do something with that, because it just bodes well for the people of Guam and the way businesses act here on Guam.
Yes, Governor, we certainly will recognize them. We'll be reaching out to you for more information to do that. Thank you for bringing it to our attention. I'd like to thank all of the committee members and the senators for joining me today for this informational hearing from the Guam Visitors Bureau. I'd like to thank the team at GVB as well as the board for providing all of today's information. And with that, with no further questions, Senator Tidegly, you have a question?
Wait for that statement if there's any further questions. So I do have one. Governor, you mentioned about the G4S and the visitor safety group, and kudos to them. And I've seen them do some great work. But is there some kind of issue that's with them that we need to worry about? I know that GVB pays for the destination management. Is there some kind of problem?
No problem. It's just that I've never seen anybody like this that has
Okay.
helped GVB out in a manner that we're not even paying them extra to do.
Okay.
And so if there's anything that you can provide more than just say, hey, my contract says this and says that, I'm just saying that we've gotten thousands and thousands of dollars worth of free service from these people at the most opportune time when people are out there losing their valuables, or people are drowning, they're jumping in the water, pulling people out. That's not their job. But what I'm saying is that that's the kind of attitude the people of Guam should have in running their business.
Yeah, okay. Well, thank you so much. I was quite concerned, bringing this up, and I definitely recognize all the hard work they've done, even when I was a deputy general manager there. And they go beyond, their call of duty. So I wanted to make sure if there's an issue that I can help address it. So I'm glad to see it's just to recognize their hard work and going beyond. Thank you so much. Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you everyone again from the GVB family. My very best to everyone there.
Thank you, Senator
Thank you.
Tidegly. So we will certainly be recognizing the G4S team with the help of GVB soon. Oh, hello. I'd like to recognize board member, Mr. Sunny Atta. Hafaday, would you like to say a few words?
Oh, I've been on listening. I just wanted to wave goodbye. I haven't seen
Oh,
many
okay.
of you. But yeah,
Thank you for being here.
the team down at the Bureau is, we're moving forward, and as you've heard, it was a great presentation, and the board looks to support management as best we can wherever we can, and you've heard the challenges, so we're all in it together, and appreciate the support from you, Madam Chairman, or committee chairman, and all the senators who poke their heads in here and are listening up to the needs of the Bureau and the industry. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Atta. And again, thank you to everyone at GVB and to the board. Siduous Masi, the time now is 11:43 a.m. and this informational hearing is now concluded. Take care, everyone, and be safe. We'll see you this afternoon for the public hearing.
Yeah.
Bye.
Okay.